Call to order, pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian.
Present.
Trustee Sell.
Here.
Trustee Unger.
Here.
Trustee Beckmeyer.
Here.
Trustee McFall.
Here.
Trustee Allis.
Here.
President Zaborowski.
Here, looking for approval of the minutes, regular board meeting, November 2nd and 16th, 2021. Special board meeting, November 10th, 16th, and 18th, 2021.
I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve the regular board meeting minutes of November 2nd and the 16th of 2021, and our special board meeting minutes of November 10th, 16th, and 18th, 2021, with trustees Unger's addendum, and the November 16th and special board meetings for November. As
Second motion?
second,
Any discussion at all?
no, I never got mine, so just let it know.
No, if not. Seeing none, I'll ask for roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian.
Aye.
Trustee Sell.
Aye.
Trustee Unger.
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee McFall.
Aye.
Trustee Allis.
Aye.
President Zaborowski.
Aye. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Whenever it is most practical for the board and persons interested in public hearing items, the board will act on the public hearing immediately following the conduct of the public hearings rather than later on the agenda. Specifically, discussion, necessary action to amend section 17.03 and 17.04 of the Village Zoning Code to permit fences within the front yard of residential districts PC 21-08, number 2106. We will open this up for public hearing.
Who's in here? Joe Russ, 1600 West Drive, Berlin, representing 55 and Casper Street. I'm not sure what changes exactly are in here, but I'd like to see some provisions for those with originals. I'd like to be able to put original fences back in their properties again. Just as long as that's covered in some shape. That's what that's like. So, anyway. It doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
My name is Ted Manella. I represent the Greendale Historical Society, and we support the proposed amendments of the zoning code and design elements. It's here 1703 and 1704 for decorative fences in the front yard of the Greendale original. The Greendale Historical Society owns the original at 5597 Apple Court, and we've made this a showplace of Greendale history for folks who would like to visit friends and relatives in Greendale and shop and visit our downtown. The house has been lovingly restored to near original condition inside and out. The Society and our volunteers have been mindful of retaining and restoring details of the exterior, including repair of the original roof on the house itself and the clay tiles on the utility room as well. And by the way, thanks to DPW, Rob and Rod, for maintaining those tiles for probably the last 20 years so we could use them. At the front of the house, we've also installed an original ash can that held coal ashes from the furnace. It's a great reminder for people when they see it of how things were in the 1930s, cleaning out their coal furnace. One of the last details of this restoration is the white picket fence at the utility room entrance. Nearly all Greendale originals had a white picket fence in front. We ask that you approve the amendments tonight to help us complete the faithful restoration of this house on Apple Court.
Anybody else? If not, I see none, I will close it. Any discussion?
Ken, what changed since last time?
So the only thing that's on here, it does allow decorative fences no further than the furthest building closest to the road. The only thing that the planner and I had not decided on, it was leaving it up to the board, is if you wanted to go with a 4-foot high fence as a maximum, or the 5'6" fence, which is allowed in all the other districts as long as you meet setback. So that was up to the board. He did put it at 5'6", which is way over what the originals had. It's at the board's discretion how big they want to go. It does have to be a wood look type of fence. We're not going to limit it to wood fences. And it has to be a picket style. Any other kind of fence will have to come back to the Village Plan Commission for approval if they want to put them within that 25-foot setback.
Okay. Since we've discussed this at multiple meetings, with that clarification, I'm going to make a motion to amend section 17.03 and 17.04 as of the village ordinance and amend section 16 of the design guidelines as presented with one change that we reduce from 5'6" to 4 feet on the height limit.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Trustee Barbier?
A couple of things. This one for discussion, at least 4 feet to me is still kind of high. The picture that I saw in the originals, I don't think they're quite that high. I guess they don't care. I'm just trying to.
What are the heights of them, if you had to guess?
We always look at pictures like, yeah, no, I don't know. Okay.
So 4 foot? Okay.
4 feet, okay.
And those are standard pickets that you can buy too. So
Okay.
I mean, other than buying 4-foot pickets and cutting them down to 36 inches and then throwing a foot away into the landfill, I mean.
The other thing I just would like to mention, just for discussion, some of these fences, if they're going up, depending upon which original you're with, will be closer to the right of way. Should plows ever come through, should anything on the sidewalk, any damage to the fence, the village will not be responsible for.
Correct.
I think that has to be.
I think that's in there, right?
I didn't see it in
He didn't put that in the
Okay.
because they are going to be on the property. We're not advocating that we allow them to go any closer than the property line. I know some people have asked for that, but then that's in the village right away,
Oh.
and now you're responsible
Wouldn't be in it,
for,
right.
could be responsible for insurance or anything.
Well, that's what I was saying is, you know, some of them can get pretty close and still be on their property, as long as everybody knows if they put them up and a plow comes through. I mean, I think they're great. I think they look great. I've seen many pictures, and I'm all for it, but I just want to be clear that, from my position anyway, that if damage is happened, the village is responsible. You can sort of put the fence up.
Well, we had asked the last time that they put that in there, because when I talked to Rod, he said, oh, definitely, there's going to be issues with the plows pushing them over the snow and that. And if the plow damages it, why can't they come back to us and want us to fix the fence? I just think it should be right in there.
That's an insurance question, not mine.
Okay.
I
Because
mean,
we
there's
did
garages and
ask
stuff
that.
that are that close. Your house is that close. I mean, is there something in an ordinance
Well,
that says
like-
we have to repair your siding if a
Well,
plow
one of the-
touches it, or?
One of the reasons I'm saying that is because they did damage pretty far into my yard last year, I think, last winter, and they did come and fix it.
But that's the right of way. They are in the right of way there.
Yeah, and my house is over the right way, you know that, right? So, I just say.
We have to amend the motion to ask our council if they can incorporate any language limiting the village's liability similar to how we would have it for siding. Since it's not going to go any further than the houses, it would be the same
Right.
treatment.
Just have them look at it. Otherwise, I have no problem.
Well, they did look at it already, and they thought to not put it in there.
No, put it in? Okay. So, withdraw the concern.
Yep, I'll second
Okay. Anyone else? No? Roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Allis?
Aye.
President Zabrowski?
Aye. Next item, citizens' comments. Persons wishing to address the board are asked to state their name and address for the record. Limit their comments to only one time. Limit their comments to 3 minutes or 5 minutes if representing a group of persons. Citizens' comments shall be limited to a period not to exceed 30 minutes. Please note the village board can only discuss matters listed on this agenda. We are open for discussion.
Hello. My name is Carrie Wan. I live on Beaver Court. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for serving on the board. I just wanted to briefly make a comment regarding the leading up to the October 25th incident. And I just wanted to say that obviously the world is full of very different views. Some people don't trust the media. They say you can't believe everything you hear on the news. Some people don't trust the World Health Organization, CDC. They don't believe in wearing masks or getting vaccines. And then some people don't trust the police, and they need extra, I guess, transparency when an incident does happen. And all of these things are valid, and all of these things are real to the people that believe them. And I think that we all have to be respected for our views, and I think that there wasn't one single person or group that was responsible for the events that culminated into the chaos at the school board meeting. I think there was a lot of moving parts, and I think there was a lot of emotions, and I've seen that before with at the school board meetings, with people being very passionate about mask wearing or very passionate about virtual school, or just over the years, I've seen a lot of very passionate pleas to the school board. I've seen the school board be yelled at for not doing their job for this reason or that reason. I'm sure you guys hear a lot of that too. It's probably part of being public servants, that not everybody is always happy with the way that things are going and the decisions that certain people make, or consensus is made. But I guess I'm here though because I just don't think that, like I said, that the one group was responsible for what took place, and I don't think that equity groups in general in this village should be banned from participating in things, especially when they've done so much good. I mean, from just a few years ago till now with the Welcoming Diversity Group, with Paige's involvement with the Welcoming Diversity Group, I think that there have been some really great changes at the school district. My son has gone there from kindergarten, he's now in 8th grade, and I see it. I see the equity work. I don't think that some of the poor decisions that were made surrounding equity in the past would happen anymore now if the same incident was to occur. So, it's small changes, but things are changing and we're moving forward, and I'd hate for us as a village to take a step back. So I wish that you would reconsider allowing Paige to work with the communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Joe Russell, 600 West Berlin, in fact, I think it's Castle Street. Seeing on the agenda, there is an item regarding the regulation of tourist homes. I hope that would be evenly applied to all tourist homes, because the Historical Society has one where they have been to tax-free, and they are also were excluded from paying some of the permits that were needed for it. That to me is not fair to those who run legit tourist homes. So I'd like to see, especially now since the Historical Society says they got the house paid off, if they're going to be running business out of there as a tourist home, they should be paying taxes as such on it. And also perhaps paying for space in the visitor center that they use, no longer have a deck of a tourist house. There also seems to be some discussion on bike path in Greendale, and I'm in favor of that.
Thank you, Joe.
Good evening, Jody Smith, 5070 Steeple Drive. It's also in connection with the tourist homes. The last time I was at this board, I think I was one of the first people to start an Airbnb in the area. And I just wanted to give the board some feedback as to how well it's gone. This year was a phenomenal year because what we're getting back, and this is really from Airbnb data, is a lot of people, because of COVID, did not want to stay in hotels. They didn't want to be as confined, so they enjoyed living in a home. If you go through my guest books, I actually have guest books in both the locations. A lot of the comments are they love the downtown area. So people were saying that this is a really well-kept secret, and they actually go to the downtown area and they say they shop there. So we do bring some stimulation of the economy in the area. In all the time I've been doing this, I've never had a serious incident. I've never had to involve the police. So we always screen our guests really well, and so does Airbnb. So we've never really had incidents, never had a problem. To be honest, if we are having problems, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have any fun with it. So, just want to reiterate, Greendale needs a place for people to stay, and we don't have a hotel in the area. Many of my guests, and this was actually my business plan, are actually guests that have family in the area. So we actually have a service to the community because some of the regionals, for example, are too small, and the families have been staying in the Airbnbs instead. I believe that there is an idea, the board is thinking of looking at what other districts and other areas are doing in regards to limiting Airbnbs. Yes, there are a lot of instances of that, and that's really focused on communities where there are party houses. So, for example, if we were in Lake Geneva, yeah, I think a lot of us would like, hey, let's go and get a house, let's party it up, and we split the cost. Greendale isn't like that. The guests that I'm getting are generally older, or they are the children of people that are more elderly in the area. Very more conservative, certainly no parties going on. And my policy is anyway, no parties allowed at all. And that's the way I keep my neighbors happy. And you know, and I've always said this, if they're unhappy, I'm going to be unhappy. If it's no fun, we're going to shut it down. So I do want to just give that input as far as the Airbnb is concerned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm always Crystal. Jackie Kramer, 5729 Clover Lane. Two things I know that Jeff came to me, Jeff Birmingham, about the bike path that has a variety of different paths to go through the village. Whenever that gets discussed, it goes 20 feet from my backyard. I think it's a wonderful idea for the village. I think anything that brings people in, they can have lunch at the shops, and then go on the rest of their way for a healthy activity is a wonderful thing. It's not a private park. I see people back there all day long walking with their Sundex bags or their kids or their dogs. So that's great. And since Jody just spoke, I'm 4 houses away from Airbnb, and he's wonderful. I don't know about the other Airbnb owners, but Jody's got 2 on my court, and he has made them beautiful. He keeps them up. We've never had any problems with any of the tenants, and if we did, leave that as number, we know where to call. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Steve Mansell, 8773 Road Bridge, and I am bringing forward an issue that I've been wrestling with for 555 days precisely before I bring it to you. On June 1st, 2020, in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, I came across an article that had 5 dozen things white people can do to advance the cause of social justice. High on that list was to inquire with your local police department about what they're doing related to issues of de-escalation, addressing race and racism, and accountability for issues like violent threats. I put that first on my list. I sent that letter on June 1st, 555 days ago. To this day, I have still not received a response from anyone in the police department. Our senators and congressmen have a better response rate to constituents than that. And I've often wondered how a police department could feel so unaccountable to citizens so as to not even bother responding to an inquiry like that. What does it say about us and our community that we would accept that? I moved back to Milwaukee 2.5 years ago. I grew up here. I was gone for 20 years. And I have to admit I was wary about Greendale because of social justice issues. I read what had happened in the schools. I knew from my own experience working at Southbridge as a teenager that there were causes for concern for me in Greendale. But I want to tell you it was precisely the existence of Paige that gave me the permission slip that I needed to move into Greendale. And my son, as a part of this school district, would find people doing the work, advancing the cause of social justice, moving us forward, moving this village forward to a forward-looking future beyond problematic pasts. I'm standing here today to express my very sincere disappointment that this board, and frankly individual members of this board, are choosing to take a citizen group that has done more to advance the cause of social justice than any other group in this community, present company included, and exclude them from community events. I would like to say from my own experience as an elected city councilor in another city, I do question the legality of that. If you have an event open to community groups, I do not believe you can pick and choose who gets to participate. What I have perceived from the discussion and the political dialogue on this topic is that there's a worry that allowing Paige into community events lends some credibility that we would not want to give to Paige. I'm just here saying that at least for me, you've got it backwards. Paige gave the school credibility. Paige gave, for me, Greendale credibility. And Paige, to me, gave you all credibility. Credibility that you are not showing you're deserving of. I hope you will take a different stance. And I hope you've really thought through the legal questions involved. But it makes me understand why the police in this village would feel so unaccountable to citizens. Because the board that oversees them also feels it's appropriate and that you're comfortable shutting down citizens you disagree with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nope. All right, seeing none, I will close it. Moving on, standing committee reports, Trustee Barbian.
Thank you, President Zabrowski. Several items on the Finance Committee's agenda for tonight. The first one is the B's, Creative Art Spaces, to get a Class B fermented malt license. That they're recommending. They're on the second floor of Southbridge Mall, in Suite 1700. The Finance Committee is recommending that the board approve this Class B fermented malt beverage malt license for V-Brez Creative Art Space. If we get a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. Just have a question on it.
Okay. I think it's fives. Fives? Okay.
Just wondering what it is.
It's like a creative art space, and they also sell art.
And they want to sell liquor? Beer?
So during, the owner is actually here right now, if she wants to describe it.
That'd be great.
Hi, I don't know, do I need to state my name or something?
No.
No, awesome. We are like a paint, arts, and crafts with sipping. So a paint and sip, we also do DIY crafting. We have a similar location in Milwaukee. This will just be like a second location with less beverage. Did that answer your question?
Is it closed parties, or is it people can come in and like the board?
You can sign up ahead of time on our website, or you can walk in, and we do have smaller groups of like 10 to 15 for like a private session.
So just beer and wine? Is that?
It's just beer.
It's just malt. It's just fermented. We won't have wine, but we'll have something for you to enjoy.
Can you do that if they can do beer? Can they do like white claw kind of drinks?
Yes, because it falls underneath the malt beverage license requirements.
Trustee
Do
Allis.
they need a bartender license for that and training?
I do have a bartender's license. In order to have the malt beverage license, you do have to take the bartender's license per the state.
Good question. Any other questions? See none, so could I have a motion to vote, please?
I move to approve the original alcohol beverage retail license as listed in the Finance Committee report.
Second motion?
Roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Feckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
President Zabrowski?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Yeah,
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong.
Oh, it's okay. I look forward to seeing everyone.
Thanks for telling me.
It's a long
Next item on our list, and get some information from Manager Michaels afterwards, but the Finance Committee moves to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of $3,885,000 in taxable general obligation promissory notes and the issuance and sale of $3,855,000 taxable notes, anticipation notes in the anticipated thereof. Can you give a little background on it?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I've got David Ferris from Allis, our financial advisors. He can outline what we're doing.
Good evening. My name is Dave Ferris. I'm a senior municipal advisor for Allis. I've actually been in front of your governing body a couple of times a few years ago when you did financing back in 2018. So this is my first time that I've been in front of you. We're going to go through a report that kind of supports what you're considering tonight with a resolution. This is a $3,855,000 taxable note anticipation note through 2021A. And on page 1 of the summary, what this note is being issued for is to reimburse the village for the land acquisition that you did in July for the Boston storm, plus also pay for some carrying costs that may incur in the future related to that property. What a tax anticipation note really does for us is it gives us ability to kind of flesh out some of the details of what's going to happen with that property. There's some discussions with developers, how it might get paid back, when it might get paid back, and some of the costs that we're not sure of how much it's going to be. It kind of gives us a little bit of time to accumulate those costs, and it doesn't start the general obligation clock. So when you take out a general obligation loan, you got 20 years to pay for it. This note anticipation note reserves some of that capacity of your general obligation, but it doesn't start the clock ticking as far as the retaining. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility. As far as the general obligation capacity that you have, really what this note does is it actually reserves some of your debt capacity to be used in the future with what will be probably a taxable note to take out this issue in 5 years. So basically this note is secured by a future borrowing. The terms of the note would be, the maturity is 5 years, but it is pre-available starting in June of 22. There are the institution that is actually the one that we're recommending to you actually has a little more flexibility as far as the prepayment. There is a little bit of a cost at the beginning, but after you get to a certain point, it's prepayable at any point. But they were giving a little bit more of a upfront ability to prepay if you want to, whereas the other person or other or institution that bid on this did not give that flexibility. So these are not bank qualified, which is really a big deal at this point. That has more to do with general obligation. There's no need for a rating. The bank that we're recommending that you go with is not looking for a rating on this issue. The reason that we're recommending this is, like I said, it delays the long-term financing as far as the clock on the general obligation, and it also allows you to accumulate those final project costs. So with that, we had 2 term sheets submitted by institutions, one BMO and one a bank called Huntington. Huntington, I believe both are now local banks. Huntington purchased, and I can't remember the name of the bank offhand.
TCF.
Yeah, TCF in the village. And so you have another local bank in town that may be willing to work with you on your local finance or your local checking and stuff. So they actually came through with a pretty good rate. They had a better rate. They had more flexibility on the prepayment, and they also had lower cost of issuance. Otherwise, you know, the service providers that are also involved in this is Quarles Brady, and they're working with the bank to come down to the agreement on those, and this will close on December 20th. The calendar of events is on page 4. We're on here to kind of go through this and have you consider the approval of the sale of those notes. And then on December 20th is when the bank will actually transfer the money to the village to reimburse you for some of those costs and provide financing for those future carrying costs. So, you know, there's some schedules in here that shows the repayment. It's interest only until that maturity, although, like I said, it is prepayable. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about this financing.
Excuse me. Out of the 3,855, how much is for cam charges?
I believe they're about 400,000.
400,000. So potentially, we won't. Best case scenario, we might not need to.
Yeah, best case we won't. But
Okay, but we got a plan for worst case.
yes.
Got it. That's all I have.
Good question. Other questions for him? Trustee Elect?
You might have said this already, but is it in here that there's no prepayment penalty?
So starting on June 1st of 22, you can start to prepay, and there is actually a cost to prepay at that point. But typically, they don't give prepayment ability until about 2 years or 3 years down the road when you're doing a 5-year. So they were actually giving a prepay ability that the other bank was not.
So as of June of 2022, we could prepay, or
Yeah, and so
not until then?
what they charge you is basically going to be about $30,000 if you actually prepaid at that point, and then that actually goes down the next June to, I think it would be like 10,000 or trying to think of what it was. 101% of the maturity. So I don't have that in my head, but so that's about. I don't have it in my head right now.
There was no agreement.
But then after we get to the next year, it's actually prepayable without penalty at all.
And we have so much interest into it.
Well, and the thing is that depending on what happens with your agreement, the payment period for the land is over a 25-year period. So this actually buys us that 5 extra years that the term that was being discussed.
Manager Michaels?
That does match the draft of the development agreement, the timing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your question answered, Trustee Elect?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I made a motion.
He did already. I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion, I have a second. I see no other questions in regards for this. Again, this is to repay the Boston Star, which we did before. I would ask for a roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Feckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Alette?
Aye.
President Zabrowski?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item on the Finance Committee is the Finance Committee's internal audit review of bills presented for payment. As I state all the time, we rotate among the trustees to randomly pick checks, ACH and P cards from the items submitted for this month, to randomly ask for details to be pulled, make sure everything looks very good. The honor this month went to Trustee Olette to pull the items, and I'll pass it over to you.
Yes, it did. And Kristen helped me, and I think Beth helped me too, right? Kristen and Beth. And it was perfect. I pulled, 4 of each, and everything checked out great.
Thank you so much for doing that. Before I make a move for approve the rest of the payments, all the trustees always get the checks. Was there any questions in regards to any of the other checks, ACH payments, or P cards from any other trustees? Okay, in that case, the Finance Committee would like to move for the village board to approve the accounts payable checks number 58052 through 58131 in the amount of $103,236.70. Also to approve the ACH payments for the month in the amount of $433,971.84. And the food card purchases for the month in the amount of $92,238.50 for a total asking for approval this month of $629,447.12.
Second motion?
Second motion. Any last questions in regards to this? Otherwise, I'll ask for a roll call. I see none, so I'd ask for a roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian.
Affirmative.
Trustee Sell.
Aye.
Trustee Unger.
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee McFall.
Aye.
Trustee Allis.
Aye.
President Zabrowski.
Aye.
Bills will be paid. Good. The next item is the status of accounts from October 25th, 2021. Is there any update from that one? Kristen, do you have any update?
Where's Kristen?
You can't run away.
I was just going back to my seat that's far back there. So just wanted to say tax bills went out this week. I don't know, did you receive yours?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's pretty much
Good job.
Nothing has changed substantially in this finance report for this month. We still look at we're on track. We may come in 200,000 under on revenues, but we haven't applied ARPA funds that we have for yet, so it's still all looking pretty good.
Any questions for Kristen?
No, good job. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
You can run away now. President Zabrowski, that concludes the Finance Committee for tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Trustee Barbian. Moving on, going to Planning Commission. I don't think there's anything, right?
No meeting tomorrow.
Yep. Library Board, Trustee Unger.
Dickens at the library was a huge success. 950 visitors enjoyed games, free cookies from the Friends of the Library, candy canes from the library staff, story time, a photo booth, crafts, and more. Thank you to all the library staff and volunteers for their hard work. Board member Deb Huberty resigned last month for family reasons after 5 years of service. And at the upcoming December library board meeting, library staff wages and the 2022 library hours and the closure days for holidays, etc., will be discussed. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you. Public Works, Trustee McFall.
No meeting.
Board of Health, Trustee Barbian.
Board of Health did not meet this month.
All right. Public Health, Welfare and Safety, Trustee Sell.
No meeting.
Park and Rec, Trustee McFall.
We have a meeting tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So,
All right.
next meeting.
Public Celebrations, Trustee Ouellette and Fuckmeyer.
Next week.
Well, that's easy. All right, no old business at this time, no board and committee appointments. Moving on to new business, BOT 21102. Discussion and necessary action regarding a special event permit request from the Greendale Lions Club for Family Fourth Fest and Village Days.
The Greendale Lions have requested approval for the following events in 2022. The 4th of July Family Fest will be Thursday, June 30th through Monday, July 4th, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, except for July 4th will be 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Broad Street will be closed through Schoolway to Crocus Court. For Village Days, Thursday, August 11th through Sunday, August 14th, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., same closure as this year.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve the special event permit application from the Greendale Lions Club for the 2022 Family Fourth Fest and Village Days as presented by Kristen.
Second motion?
Any other discussion? If not, let's roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian.
Aye.
Trustee Sell.
Aye.
Trustee Unger.
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee McFall.
Aye.
Trustee Ouellette.
Aye.
President Zabrowski.
Aye. Next item, BOT 21-103, discussion and necessary action regarding the Village Annual Volunteer Recognition Dinner.
This year, I thought we could do something fun and different, and I'm requesting approval for the Village Greendale Volunteer Appreciation Dinner to be at J&J contractors on Friday, January 14th, in 2022, with more of a open house style atmosphere consisting of more heavy appetizers, like a Taste of Greendale type of thing, with all of the restaurants, along with J&J's sponsorship of the bar. This would be something just kind of fun and different to show the volunteers and staff how much the village and the village president appreciate all that is done for the community. Awards would be presented, as in previous years, at a scheduled time.
Any discussion?
Yeah, take a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve BO2 21-103, to approve the village's volunteer recognition event to be held at J&J Contractors as presented by Kristen.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Trustee Barbian?
I'd like to just say, I think this is one of the neatest things that we do as a village and have done for many, many years. Nothing gets done in this village without volunteers. We don't have enough manpower on staff to put together the events that we do that everyone comes down to. The volunteers are the ones that make it happen. They're the engine that drives the whole vehicle forward. And once a year, everybody on the board wants to, and the staff wants to thank the people that help out. And also, hopefully, other people will volunteer in the future years, because we're always short of people. And if you continue to volunteer, it makes it get better and better. I just wanted to say that before we.
All right. Anybody else?
Agreed?
I agree, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Sounds like a lot of fun, this new plan.
Yeah, something
Good.
different.
Sounds really great.
I'm excited.
Volunteering
I love
for
it.
25 years, I've never gone to this, but I think I'll go this year.
Very fun.
Hopefully it'll be the best one.
I think that we will get more volunteers because they'll want to come to the parties.
There you
Yeah. That's what I heard.
go. All right, perfect. Ask for roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian.
Affirmative.
Trustee Self.
Aye.
Trustee Unger.
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee McFall.
Aye.
Trustee Allis.
Aye,
President Sabrowski.
Abstain. Thank you, Kristen.
thanks.
BOT 21-104, discussion and necessary action on an ordinance regarding the village's polling places. It's you?
Yes.
All right.
All right, so my recommendation is to use the high school upper gym for wards 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and 10, and Highland View Elementary School for 5, 6, 7, 8 to accommodate all of the voting with superior accessibility and for significant cost savings. The Village of Greendale implemented central count ballot processing, absentee ballot processing in 2012. This means that rather than sending the absentee ballots to the polling locations to be processed, they are processed at Village Hall, and therefore do not take the time for the poll workers at the 5 polling locations. Absentee voter numbers have steadily increased over the years. For example, in the 2000 presidential election, we had 9% absentee voters. 2016 presidential, we had 33%. And the 2020 presidential, we had 69%. Granted, the large increase for absentee in the 2020 presidential was due partly because of the pandemic. However, in April of 2021, the election had more than 40% absentee ballots. We have also had a huge increase of people signed up for permanently or indefinitely confined absentee voters. These are voters who receive a ballot in the mail for every election. In 2019, we had 337 voters who had signed up for this. Now in 2021, we have tripled that number to 947. The more people that vote absentee, the fewer people that will vote at the polls. Greendale is unique in that all offices in the village are at large. We only have 1 school district, and our state and federal offices are the same throughout the village. This allows us to have 1 type of ballot and any variation of combinations for reporting. With reducing the amount of reporting units, this will allow us to save money on the cost of ballots and programming done by the county. Some of the cost savings include decreased staffing costs for election by 60%, reducing costs for equipment replacement, decrease the cost for programming the equipment, less time, and cost for setup for the locations using the DPW resources, decreasing costs for less ballot styles, which reduce waste when ordering ballots. It also allows increased efficiency for village staff, decreased the time needing to prepare for the election, setting up signage, supply buckets, and ordering coffee, snacks, lunches would be simplified. A great deal of time is spent going around and checking in with each locations on election day. a decrease in time it takes DPW workers to set up and tear down the polling locations, and if there would be less confusion for voters with only 2 locations and Loomis Road being the dividing line. Candidates would also not have to send so many poll watchers at the end of the night. The reduction in polling locations regarding long lines on election day, there are ways to prevent these lines and keep them to a bare minimum. Like I discussed in my memo, there's ways by splitting poll books in multiple sections by each letter to keep voters moving. Another would be to have a greeter or 2 to help voters go where they need to make sure they are prepared. In my cost comparison that was in the packet, you can see the significant savings from having 5 live locations to 2 live locations. We're looking about $15,000-ish right there in savings. There's also savings with the firmware and hardware maintenance. There's the refreshments and snacks, supplies that are needed. We are going to start needing to replace some equipment, flags, printers for election day registrations, signage. So the estimate is about $20,935 in savings.
And is that per election?
So this is for a 4-year election. So every even election, there's 4 years, and then every odd, there's typically 2 elections. Yeah, a 4-year election.
Okay.
So.
Any, Trustee Barbie?
When were you, in theory, wanting us to implement something like this if it was voted in?
So I would implement it right away. The county needs our reporting units for April's elections already. So I have like what we call X charts, which determine our ballot styles that are due at the end of next week.
Follow-up question. Yep. My only concern on this is that our village views just went out for this one. Many people in Greendale have gone to the same voting location for 20 years, 25 years. That's where they're going to go. And in April, we only have one other actual paper, Village Views, I believe, to go out to let them know. I think there might be some frustration when you show up at a location you don't know about it. What is the idea is to let all the residents know that this has happened?
In January, there's a newsletter that's going out. So we also plan on putting in the water bills, like a note in your water bill. Every voter would get a letter stating, it's required by law that we have to send a voter who's changed polling locations or who had a new ward assignment, like from the map that we voted on last month. There's the, I don't know what you call it, the electronic sign, where we can put that up. It'll be on our website, Facebook. Facebook posts, I plan on doing it every so often, like a repeated post so people are aware. I also plan on election day to put up signs at the old locations stating where they need to go now. I'm trying to think of what else we thought of ways that we can really get it out there. Yeah.
I just had a concern on that.
Yeah.
People just go by rote that they've done for so many years. And,
absolutely.
I don't want to turn around and not vote because, that sounds like you.
Trustee Feckmeyer first.
I had the same concern.
Same question.
Getting the word out, but it sounds like it's pretty adequate.
Trustee Younger.
My question for Melanie today was, we can still do early voting here at Village Hall. That won't change.
So that is required by state. That is not something that changes. Decided by state, sometimes it changes how long you can do it, but it's always been at least 2 weeks prior to the election, and that will never change. No.
Anybody else?
No, I like it. I like, obviously, any way we can think of to save money, especially in good chunks like this. It's awesome. So thank you.
Trustee Love?
I guess, I just think that last year wouldn't be a good representation of when they had the mail-in ballots, and early voting I do love, but I think because of COVID it kind of could skew the numbers. I do think that a lot of our residents like the polling locations. I know it, I've heard it from them many times. I think going from 5 to 2 is drastic. I am afraid that there's going to be people waiting. I know you said you could split the book, but if you're going to be reducing the staff, it's going to reduce, people to be able to go through the lines. I think it's a drastic change to make right now, and I'm not for that right now.
If you looked in the packet, I also had a list of the municipalities that had how many locations with our current population range. Currently, there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that have 2 or less. We have 2 that have 3 polling locations, and then 1 that has 4. I mean, currently we are right up there with the city of Greenfield having 5 locations, and they have a little over 30,000 registered voters. So
I just don't want to have people wait. They're not used to waiting in line, and I think 3 would be better than 2.
With splitting of poll books, it allows for, yes, I would have reduced staff overall, but I would even have, I would be able to have more staff at one location than spread out across 5. To be faster.
But there'll be less people. There would have been at the other, the huge change. And I think it's a very short amount of time to let people know that are, in Florida or whatever. I don't know.
What are you thinking?
Trustee McFall.
Well, with my experience of running public works and having the guys go out there and set up and everything, I think this also makes it easier that if there's a problem with one of the polling machines, sometimes those guys are at Canterbury, and then there's a problem up in Highland View, so there's a waiting period for those guys to get up there to see what's going on, or if they need ballots and everything. This way, I think what she's done, I think, is a great idea. Just going with 2, splitting it by the road, I think it'll be easier for everybody, even for, I hate to say, public works. Yeah, and again, and I often laughed about, I live 300 yards from the high school, and I voted at Canterbury. So this is great for me. I love it. Sorry. It's all fun. Yeah, it's all fun.
My polling station will
Trustee
be
Sal.
there. So it's not personal.
He had something.
I was just to say, because we're changing the wards, if we're going to make a change, now's the time to do it. Because then you just get one notice rather than, send them one notice in January and then another one after April when we decide, okay, we are going to do this. It's kind of like, we have to change some of the wards anyways, and they're going to get
Because of the
notices.
redistricting, you mean?
Because of the map.
One last question, I just kind of to piggyback on Trustee Ouellette's concern. Let's say we did this from in April, and I think there's a August primary this year, correct? And then the November. If a year cycled by, and let's just say there were a lot of resident complaints, I don't think there would, I have no idea. Would it be massively difficult to add a 3rd location back in, as Trustee Oulette said, the following year, or would that create issues?
So it can change. You can change it at any point you want to. So as the village board, you can decide you want to change the locations at any point in time. I do have certain deadlines with each election, but at any point in time, I don't want you to feel like it has to stay this way. The one thing I do have to say about adding a 3rd location is Loomis is such a nice dividing line, and anybody can know where they vote. So, you have residents that come up to you and ask, I don't know where my polling location. Then you send them to me, and then I relay back to you or relay back to the resident telling them where they vote. This, they'll ask you, where do I vote? You would say, well, do you live east or west of Loomis Road? And that's the defining factor right there. Anybody can, police department, DPW, anybody can tell these people where they vote, tell residents where they vote.
Trustee Sal.
I want to make a motion to approve the ordinance amending section 1.51 of the village ordinance regarding polling places as presented.
I'll second.
Second? Okay. Kristen, did you have something?
I just want to make a comment as the former clerk and still working in this office, and she just made the point right now, but our office is so excited to be able to say currently with our locations that we have, if someone says they live on College Avenue, you have to flip over this thing and look, okay, if they live in this street to this number, they go here, if they live this number to this number. This is just beautiful, and truly, you could help. Our DPW, somebody at the dump could say, well, okay, which side of Loomis do you live on? And the whole village could be able to help, including you guys, to tell people where they would vote. So that's exciting to our office.
Awesome, thank you, appreciate it.
Related question, your permanent absentee ballots that you mail out, do we vet those somehow if people die or whatever?
So yeah, if they don't return a ballot at a general election, they come off the list. Also, if somebody passes away, we also have, it's run like twice a month, I believe. It's called the death, reg alerts or something like that. And so we match them, and then that eliminates their absentee and off the poll books and all that wonderful stuff. It inactivates their record.
I just want to say one thing. This is something that I actually originally brought to the board probably 2 years ago. And I was really for it, and I'm excited to see that it's back on, and I hope that it would go through. So, yeah, it is better this time. So I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Feckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
No.
President Zabrowski?
Aye. All right, passes. Next item, BOT 21-105, discussion necessary action regarding the 2022 agreement for environmental public health services with the City of West Allis.
Hi.
Hello.
All right, so as presented to you in your packet, I am asking for a continuation of the contract between the West Allis Health Department and the Village of Greendale to provide environmental public health services to the village. We do have our environmental health specialist here with us tonight if you do have any questions. So this contract will help us to license and inspect environmental related facilities such as swimming pools, lunchrooms, restaurants, retail food establishments, temporary food events, including food trucks and tourist rooming houses. In addition, the environmental health specialist provides other environmental health services related to human health hazards. And was there any questions?
My only question was on the price increase. It says a monthly increase of $312 per year. So is it an increase of $312 a month or $312 per year?
So it is actually a monthly increase of $312. So then the total on the back there is $1,347 per month.
Do you base that increase just on volume from last year or something, or what did they base that on?
So I'm actually going to ask Peter to come on up here and help me explain that.
In basic, it's just what I would consider a cost of living advance or increase compared to workload and or administrative costs associated with the program.
So for the actual person.
Trustee Barbian.
Have you received any negativity on the company over the last year? Everything's been
No,
positive?
absolutely not. I had kind of asked around, looking for some feedback, and it seems overall everybody's been very happy with the services that we've received. Peter has been more than willing and ready to answer any questions that we've had, and he comes to our events and makes sure that we're up to par, so that volunteer event, yep, we need him
Yeah.
for that Taste of Greendale food.
Yeah, so I would say quality-wise he's great, but am I right that it's a 30% increase in cost? If we're paying now $1,347 per month, and that's a $312 increase, that'd be like 30%.
So the value would be that a while ago, probably greater than 10 years ago, the health department did have their own staff that was licensed to do this. The cost is higher than that for having them be an agent with the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. They also have to have certain qualifications and licenses. So to contract out for that service, it really would save money in the long term.
Trustee Unger?
How many times a month are you in Greendale?
It varies. Typically, I would have to say 3 to 4 times a month doing my inspections at the restaurants. This month has been a little bit more hectic with some store changeovers at the mall, for example, and we have some PRHs, so we've been working with Camelot. So, you know, summertime it differs, wintertime is more.
And what are you doing for the tourist rooming houses?
Well, per state statute, they are licensed as lodging facilities, so we do a once-a-year inspection. We initially do a pre-opening or an occupancy inspection. Basically, that's a life and health safety type inspection.
Ken?
I'd just like to mention that working with Peter, he's been very professional with opening up our restaurants, and I think it saves the time for myself and for the restaurants in the village, that he helps them along, and there's a lot of pre-planning, not just coming in here, but a lot of questions that he's answering in his own office for our restaurants, and especially in the mall area, because they're not as sophisticated there as they are in the long-term restaurants. So I think he's shortened the lead time for every restaurant in the village for opening up.
All right, 1 second here. I just want to move to approve the 2022 West Allis Health Department proposed agreement to provide environmental public health services for the Village of Greendale at the cost of $16,164 per year, and I appreciate everything you guys do. So thank you. Second. Okay. Trustee
I
Olet?
just want to say that Peter's always there to answer questions, very knowledgeable with every penny. I really value him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I agree.
We looked it up. We were looking at the numbers. It's an annual increase, so it's 2%, not 30.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, was this something we budgeted for?
Yes.
It was?
Yeah.
Fine.
Any other discussion? No? Us roll call.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Self?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Feckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Olet?
Aye.
President Zabrowski?
Aye. Next item, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you also, Peter.
Thank you.
Discussion necessary action regarding IT services agreement with the Greendale School District, BOT 21106.
Good to know.
Manager Michaels?
During the budget process, it was mentioned, why don't we just get into a 5-year agreement? So what you have this evening is a drafted agreement. Essentially, everything in red is what's changed, very little. We did include language due to loss of a key employee. So I think we've all become, I know staff certainly has become very comfortable with working with Ryan Jonas and his management skills and for his people. And if he was lost, we would want to reconsider, possibly depending on who they would hire, whether we had concern about performance. Basically increases by cost of living, got in here, consumer price index, so that's fair on both sides. That's for your consideration.
Trustee Self?
Yeah, it's a great agreement, well done, it's nice, and honestly, when we first entered into this, I was a little skeptical, but having worked with Ryan and Ryan's presentation he gave us a few weeks ago, this is vital to us, so this is awesome. And I would move to approve the IT services agreement with the Greendale School District from July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2027.
I'll second it.
The only question I have is saying, it's been wonderful, love working with Ryan. As long as there are clauses in there, should he leave, I want to be involved before we move forward, which is there. So I think it's great too.
Awesome. Trustee
You
Unger?
can't leave.
I'm not comfortable approving this the way it was presented because we did not get Exhibits A or Exhibits B. So the fringe benefits and any retirement severance costs, that wasn't attached. And Exhibit B wasn't attached either. A portion of the budget or plan of operation.
We can attach that and bring it back next meeting.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I have no problem. It really should have been.
Good catch.
What is that? The listing of itemized costs.
If that's not an addition though to the agreement now, right? That's the same as what
We'd say that we have.
Do you still want to see it even though it's the same thing?
I've never seen it.
I would suggest it.
Okay.
I would suggest it. I didn't know it was an item.
Yeah.
Okay, can we withdraw the motion then and we'll just table it?
You don't have to come to the next one. I feel horrible. You live far away.
I'd like to make a motion.
Does anyone have any questions? Because I really don't want him to have to come to the next one.
No.
That you can think of
No, I
by
think
chance.
it's a great job. And
Okay.
well,
All right.
Excellent job.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
Then we'll just ask that we put it on the next agenda to vote on it.
I think you moved to table.
Oh, you did already? Oh,
Well, tabling is different.
Yeah, I just wanna-
Because then you actually have to have a vote, a permanent vote to get it off the table. Just
What?
parliamentary.
I thought we were gonna table it.
we just want to put it on to the next agenda.
Okay, so I'd like to table it for tonight and put it on the agenda for the 21st,
I second that.
including the
But
exhibits.
then you have to, just so you know, then you have to vote to take it off the table next meeting.
So don't table it. Just don't table it.
Okay.
It's just on the next agenda.
All right.
So just no action.
If you're for it, you don't
Okay.
want to table it.
All right.
That's the way I have to say it.
So do I
Got it.
Okay,
roll
so
call?
just no action.
Do I take a roll?
Next agenda.
No? Okay. All right. Moving on, BOT 21-107, discussion and necessary action regarding a proposal to add bike paths throughout the village. Manager Michaels.
I've got a, and then Jeff had asked to speak.
Okay.
You received in the packet a memo from the village engineer, asked him, to give you his opinion and expertise on this, and members from his firm who have done paths like this and grants like this, because I really had no experience with it, other than what I could learn looking up on the state's website, how rules for paths and things like that. So I had asked him to, estimate it and give some input. So he said he's offering the following. Conceptual idea of the project would be to create and upgrade 10-foot wide asphalt pathway routed through the village in near downtown business district for bicycle and pedestrian users. Proposed path would primarily utilize existing sidewalks and pathway routes with some new path segments. Just so you know, I've been given very different alternatives by Mr. Birmingham. So this was based off of I think his first alternative, which was he separated, the engineer separated out into south segment, middle segment, and west segment. Estimated at just over $2 million. That we would have to acquire some right of way. He's talking, but then he talks about grant programs available. The main one is it's called the CHAP program, Transportation Alternative Program. Such committee will assess the following criteria for these grants. Project is included in an adopted bicycle pedestrian / SRTS or another local comprehensive plan, which we do not have right now. Project addresses specific concerns identified through previous long-range planning efforts, which we haven't done it to this date. Project improves, maximizes transportation, investment, example coordination with other projects, which enhance existing improvements. Project integrates with initiative, public health, economic development, etc. We are doing the path on Grange, so I think part of that, this would attach to the path on Grange, west of 76th Street. For infrastructure projects, project activities like design, real estate, utility, rail, environmental investigation, rail environmental have to be completed or initially in advance of the application. Applicant documents submitted, a comment commitment to year-round facility maintenance. The application is about 13 pages long, and it is due for this cycle, the current cycle, January 28th of 22. In his opinion, if the village desires to purchase a multi-use path project, pursue, the following sequence of project steps should be considered. In the year 2022, the village would need to prepare and adopt village planning documents that designate various bicycle and pedestrian facilities within the village, both existing and planned routes and facilities. In the year 2023, consider applying for TAP funding for the subject multi-use path project. Project application should consider the following project timeline and funding. Plan for the design work in year 2024 to be funded 100% by the village. Plan for path right-of-way and easement work in year 2025 to be funded 100% by the village. And plan for path construction and construction administration in year 2026 to be 80% state and federal funded, 20% village funded. With proper planning, he feels that an embracing of an approved bicycle pedestrian facilities in the village of Greendale, village will have a good chance of securing the available state and federal funding in the coming years for projects like this. And then he included what it would take to kind of do the. You want to scroll down, Sarah? He included comments on what would need to be changed in different sections to accommodate the design that I originally got. That's it. Go ahead, Tricky.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'd like to first thank the board and Todd for allowing me to present this to start off. You know, how many people here are for the trails? Did you stand up? For the trails. Thank you. And then I also have our board group, that's part of the group on this. Dave is one of them. Dave is an expert on trails. He's been doing it for. Dave, why don't you explain it?
I have about 40 years of consulting experience, having designed and developed and engineered and grant funded about 50 miles of trails in southeastern Wisconsin, both public agency and private consulting.
He's on our committee.
I was raised in Greenville, 1957.
So, and then I have some committee people, Greg and Mark, they're on the committee. He wants to be on the committee. Frank, he wants to be on the committee. So there is a movement here that people do want trails, okay? And everybody I've talked to, I've had one person that had been against it, but everybody else I've talked to is very much saying, why haven't they done this before? You know, we're a good community for it. The map I gave you first was the first time I started this, and I came with several different maps that you mentioned. This is the last map that I designed, this is going to be much less expensive than the $2 million. Basically, what it shows is Grange Avenue. Now, you are having a bike lane, right? Is it a bike lane or is it a pathway?
It's a mixed, I believe it's a mixed use
Path, okay. So there's going to be a pathway from Brook River Parkway to 76th Street. And I'm saying to add a pathway to Northway, okay? That's about 0.2 of a mile. Northway and Schoolway are wide enough to have a bike lane. So when I brought up about all the trails behind on the sidewalk, not necessary. That really brings the cost down. It brings this whole thing about a mile. And I've been told by the county that the cost can be between $100,000 and $1 million to do a trail. This is under $1 million, okay, with this plan. So you come down Northway, you have bike lane down Northway, which is much safer for people riding bikes, it's much safer for kids to come in the community, it's much safer. You come down Broad Street, again, bike lane all the way down. Wide enough for a bike lane, you don't have to add a sidewalk or a street. Now, what I added, before it came back along Grange Avenue, all widen the pathway 10 feet, Grange Avenue, the whole works, and Southway widening. No, I changed it to, there is land behind the baseball field and the football field for a trail. This trail would come right behind here and it end up at Dorchester. Dorchester dead ends into the school, right in the parking lot. This Dorchester Road right here would have a shared bike lane. A shared bike lane means a car and a bike can share the lane. You can do that when you don't have a lot of traffic, and so it's just a marking showing it's a shared bike lane. And then you go to Sherwood Lane. Sherwood Lane is wide enough for a bike lane. That goes right to the dead end. That goes literally right up to the park. It's literally like 400 feet. And this bike lane right here would have to be added. So literally what you're doing is adding a bike lane here, widen this 10 feet, and widen this 10 feet. That's it. That's it. Now, you're going with the $2 million cost. It's not going to be even close to that. So that's the, yeah. All right, I divided it into 5 things. What, where, when, how, and when. I mean, what, where, why, how, and when. To start off with, it's a Greenbelt Trail. There's over 400 trails in Wisconsin. And here's the maps of the trails. Now, if Greendale does do a trail, it would be 401. And it would put us in the map. It would bring people to see Greendale and say, hey, they got a trail in Greendale, and it's just another advertising for Greendale. Why? Why should we do this? Greendale is a Greenbelt planned community and was designed for accessibility and connectivity. It is located adjacent to Whittle Park and River Parkway, which is a huge advantage for a trail. It's connected to Oak Creek Trail that reaches out 1,107 miles. We would connect to that. It benefits biking, walking, health, and safety. It promotes a safer running, walking, and biking from schools, homes, and businesses. It's a fun and social activity that strengthens the neighborhoods. It promotes local businesses, economic impacts. Now, we'll talk about grants. Here's my expert. What have you done, over 200 grants?
I lost count after 40 years.
So
I gave Jeff some information on, some of you may be aware of the grants that are available for bike and ped facilities in the state of Wisconsin. I'm Dave Birch. Just very quickly, born in Milwaukee, moved to Greenville in 1957, stayed until 1971. When we went off to college, we moved over to Parkview from the east section. I came back home for Christmas. My dad said, your mom turned that room into a sewing room. We didn't think you'd be coming back so soon. I always love to come back. So I currently own a house on Apricot Court. My mom recently passed. So I own that house now. We're not turned into an Airbnb for sale in about 3 or 4 months. But my experience in designing parks, trails, bike ped facilities around the Midwest, actually, it's all about connectivity. What do you want to connect with? And the goal here is to connect. You have an existing regional trail, the Oak Leaf Trail, which is very popular, into a downtown district. You also want to connect your homes, schools, parks, and other trails with that amenity. And you have a great pedestrian network as originally designed by Albert Peets, the planner from the US government back in the 1930s. But you have an opportunity to include bikes now. And so multi-purpose projects, bike and ped facilities, are really a way to make them more inclusive to people who are on their bikes and maybe don't want to be on the streets if they don't have to. It's a safer alternative, it's a healthier alternative. There's ways to design these to avoid utility conflicts, vegetative conflicts, but that takes a design process. And part of the process in going after grants is having a design and engineering component, which your village planner engineering firm could probably do. Tom Mortensen from R.A. Smith is very successful at working on these kinds of facilities. My goal is just to help facilitate the idea that connectivity is important, providing bike and ped facilities is important, and that's something that I think will improve the village overall. The DOT program, the TAPS program, the deadline is looming, but it's an 80-20 project grant program where 20% is local, 80% is federal dollars that filters down through the state. And it's really designed to enhance communities and connectivity. So this project would certainly be eligible whether you apply this cycle or the next cycle. Wisconsin DNR has, through their stewardship program and recreational trails program, also 50-50 funding. So 50% local, 50% state. And that also provides dollars for recreational trails, or in this case, bike ped facilities.
That includes also for engineering and all that, right?
Typically, it's broken down into activities, and the activities are pre-planning, permitting, design and engineering, the design, construction documents that get you through bidding, the bidding process, and then a work contract. There's an agreement that whenever you accept a grant, the village would need to sign the agreement, whether it's with the state or DNR or the state DOT, which obligates you then to providing the local match and completing the project on a timely basis based on a mutual schedule that you establish. A lot of times, the point value for winning these grants boils down to private fundraising. If you have a local match or a private group that steps up and says we're going to give 10% of the project value, or we're going to meet this goal in order to help leverage the local dollar amount, that adds points and improves the eligibility to win that grant. I think that the process is pretty well known. If you haven't gone through it before, I can help you as a volunteer. This is not a consulting job or a paid thing. This is just to help the village out in this process. But if I can do anything to help along the way, Jeff knows how to reach you.
Appreciate it, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate yeah, like you said, there's a lot of experience. He can help with grant writing. He can help with the engineer of the plan. So he gives us free offer to this. Like he said, the grant can pay 80%. Now, like I said, it could be between $1 million and $100,000. If you take it at 20%, it'd be between $10,000 and $200,000 if you got the grant. But not including the other grant also. So, and also it can be in 3 phases. You can do it in 3 separate years and do 3 separate things. So even if you take the maximum amount of $1 million, and it's actually going to be $200,000, and you divide that by 3, how much is that going to cost you? Not a lot. I mean, it is a lot. I mean, it's tax money, yes, it is, but it's not as much as when you hear $2 million. No, it's not. It's not like that. I think it's worth the safety of kids and families. It's worth a lot of things. Greendale has no bike path in Greendale. Most cities have bike paths. Not bike lanes. Greendale has no bike lanes. Where?
Just because I know we had to put them on 51st Street between Lewis and Grange.
Lewis and Grange? Okay.
We had
a little bit. Thank you, sorry.
It's a small one.
Very little. Okay. So again, this is a much safer situation. But basically what I'm asking from the board tonight is 2 things, well, 3 things. One is to put this in the comprehensive plan. Just put it in the comprehensive plan. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you have to do it or anything. You just put it in the comprehensive plan. Number 2, apply for the grant. Apply for the grant by January 22nd or 28th. And if the grant doesn't go through, let's say you get it, and you're saying, we don't have money, you can refuse it. There is no gamble here. That's it.
So could it exceed $1 million?
Well, I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I can't tell you. Dave, he knows, he's been
I would
doing
say
it.
no, based on what I've seen for the distance that we're talking about. Usually, to get into those dollars, you're talking about adding bridges, or you have complicated drainage issues, or utilities to relocate, or you have to buy right-of-way as part of the project. Real estate can add up very quickly. Those are the kinds of things that typically drive a project into that dollar value. If you're grading and adding asphalt, that's typically it's not a big undertaking from a construction standpoint, but it's when you get into utilities, drainage structures, real estate, right-of-way issues, those are things that tend to drive project costs up.
Question. So how are you attracting the bikers on the Oak Leaf Trail from 68th and Loomis down into Greendale?
Good question.
Because those are the bikers we want, I feel.
Good question.
And I didn't see that in your new map.
Well, let me explain. Right here, the Oak Leaf Trail starts right here, okay? And it connects right here, and it goes through the park. This is actually a shortcut for the Oak Leaf Trail. This is part of it could be an Oak Leaf Trail and a Green Belt Trail. So this is actually a shortcut back to the Oak Leaf Trail.
So if
Off 76th Street, you're back there.
Or another route.
Or off Grange, yeah.
It connects, it comes here at Grange, you come through here, and then it connects right there here in Whitnall Park, and it goes right here. It's part of the Oak Leaf Trail.
Can I just suggest what I've seen on trails around the country is directional signs. You may have seen them on the old MASH episodes where it was, so many thousand miles to New York. And trails in the country sometimes will say 1.5 miles to historic Greenbelt downtown, or 1 mile to Botanical Gardens at Whitnall Park, or it could be a simple wayfinding sign at that intersection that directs people into downtown Greenville.
You know what? I want to add one thing that I didn't mention. Not only is I expecting to get the grant, okay, it costs $200,000, but I plan on doing fundraising. I have really 2 great ideas that I feel will pay a lot of this. And one is to have a haunted thing at Scout Lake, and I already talked to the county about it, kind of like the Hills As Ice. And another one is to have a Greendale fair. And both of these, my group is willing to work on this, and both of these will bring in a lot of money for this. Not only that, there's fundraising. Not fundraising, but there's donations. I haven't even talked about donations. I have a couple of people that may want to donate quite a amount of money for this. So, and then you have the school. I want to talk to the school. When it's connected to the school, what's interesting about that connected to the school is that the school actually used for the cross-country running, they run to Whitnall Park. Now it comes right from the high school and goes directly to Whitnall Park. And it's a safer way for them to run. And because it connects to the school, I would ask the school, maybe you could keep a little bit of money for this. So there's many ways that this can be done, and I feel that eventually it could be paid for itself, and it wouldn't cost any taxpayers money by fundraising, donations, and all that. Eventually, I truly feel that it won't cost any taxpayers money in the future.
Is that your goal?
That's my goal. Okay. That's my goal, absolutely.
How many miles would this trail be? When I opened up the book, the first one that just popped up was 28, and then there's 13, 14, 15, like...
This trail right here?
Yeah.
5 miles. So literally, you're doing less than a mile of working on a trail, and you're making a 5-mile trail. Because Oak Leaf Trail goes in the park, and it's already a trail. So literally, the work that Greendale's doing is less than a mile for a 5-mile trail.
How did you determine, like coming down the Northway, that we have the space, because it seems so narrow to me as far as...
Broad Street.
And Broad Street, yeah.
It's not narrow. It has plenty of room for bike lane. Bike lane has to have 5 feet for a bike lane. It is a legal bike lane. It has plenty of room for cars.
Is that a shared lane then?
No,
No.
it's a bike lane
But
on
if
each
you
side.
have cars-
On each side.
If you have cars parked on Broad Street, which
Yes.
they're allowed going north.
That's a good question. There would not be parking on the street. But I looked at that. I looked at the parking, and you have the bank, and then you have that other professional business there. There's 20 parking spaces at the bank, and there's 13 parking spaces at that business that goes right around it. Most people will park in the front, but they can use that. So I think it's a good idea not to have parking down the schoolway. It's kind of, when cars are coming, you open the doors and stuff, it's a lot safer. And so, yes, it would have to eliminate the parking.
And the bike trail is always going with traffic or against? I'm not quite...
Okay, bike traffic goes both ways. So you have a bike lane going this way, and you got a bike lane going this way.
But this case will just be one side of the street.
No,
both sides.
There's 5 feet. There's 5 feet of room. In fact, there's even a little bit more room for a bike lane, and then for driving traffic.
Doesn't seem like that.
Yeah.
We have so many problems with Broad
It's
Street.
it's 35 feet from one curb to the other.
I bet you that.
35 feet.
Why do you need 2 on both sides of the street? They're not going back.
Because if you go one way,
Oh, they
you can't go back onto the street. You can't go into traffic. So you have to have both lanes. And so that the bike lane would be 2 lanes. That's why there's 2 lines here. Bike lane on each side.
People might be coming this way from the park or that way.
Yes, one direction the other. And another thing, my first idea was to do the pathways behind.
I like that better.
I know, I like that, but some people, they don't like people riding on that sidewalk. And that's
I think it's safer.
that's why, and the cost is quite a bit more. It adds another like half mile of sidewalk widening, so the cost is quite a bit more. And so that was my original cost, and that was part of that $2 million, was that and other things that I did. So that's where the cost is really high. It was really high. So I said, Broad Street, perfect, and it brings people right to the businesses, right there, right later.
Trustee Sal.
I'm sorry.
I had a question. I mean, I like conceptually the idea, but as far as being successful with the grant application, doing it in January, you had mentioned you get points if you have the fundraising set. So would we want to wait until we have the private fundraising? And the other question is,
That's a problem.
when we also need to have the actual cost, which we don't have because we did the wrong or a different map before we apply, so we would need to have that redone as well, right?
Yeah, I've not seen this map, so.
Well, we'll start off with, if you wait for this TAP grant, you have to wait another 3 years before you can apply for that again. And the infrastructure, they actually increased that TAP grant 60% with the infrastructure. So there is a lot of money available right now. 3 years from now, who knows what's going to happen.
So you can apply in 22 or in 25, not in 23 or 24?
No, not for that grant. No, it's like every 3 years that they do that grant. Am I correct?
You're correct, but the DNR monies for the trails through the DNR is every year, every May.
That's just 50-50.
That's the deal. The DOT money is a cycle that's every 3 years. And not to conflict with what you're saying, but there is advantages to planning it out so that you have all your I's dotted, T's crossed and apply for it, not rush it in and miss something. So I've had situations where people try to get it in quickly and have run into roadblocks because they missed something. The resolution is missing, or they don't have all their agreements in place, they don't have their local share budgeted. Those are all deal killers as far as the DOT is concerned. So if you have those things ready to go and can come into it, and usually a resolution is needed from this entity that's applying for the grant, then you have a high chance of being in the hunt for the money. If you don't have those ducks in a row, I would encourage you for the next cycle and be patient, go for the next cycle money.
If you do get the money, how long do you have to spend it? Is there a time frame?
I've heard up to 6 years.
There's an agreement that is signed with the state that indicates your term of agreement for spending the money.
And I've heard that from the county bike person that's in charge of the bikes. She told me you have up to 6 years to spend the money for it.
Trustee McFall first.
I guess my issue is not just because I live in that neighborhood, but you talk about going down Dorchester. How do you tell those people they can't park in front of their residence?
They can. Because it's a shared biking lane, it doesn't affect parking, it doesn't affect widening sidewalks or streets.
But where is it? I mean,
okay,
is it on one side of the road, is it on the other, or is it in the middle of the road?
It's a shared parking lane it's on the whole road, the whole side of the street. It's just a painting. What does it show exactly?
There's a new term, fairly new, that the state started using a few years ago called a share-road. Now, I don't like it, but that's what they call it. And it's a shared roadway. Waukesha has several of them where it's part of a bike route to get you from the New Berlin Trail over to the Glacier Trail.
That's what this is doing.
So it's not a bike route that's assigned with a bike lane, a 4 or 5 foot lane. It's a series of arrows like chevrons in the pavement that indicates that is a bicycle shared route with vehicles and cars. And in some aspects, or some circumstances, they are allowed to park on that because there's adequate street width. In some areas, they're not. But that's the new term they're using, is a share road, which is a shared road with bikes in.
In this situation, I believe because it's a short distance and it's shared with cars. That's all it is. It's just telling people, hey, could be bikes.
And also that stretch of road at the end of Sherwood Road that leads into the Village Club. Who owns that?
That's a good question.
Does the Village Club own that? Does the county own that? Because that's
Which section are you talking about? Sherwood Road.
at the end of Sherwood Road, and we're Dorchester. It goes right into the, it goes right into the map. It goes, well, no, it feeds into your parking lot.
No, it goes right.
I know that's public road.
The end of the road.
Yes, it does, but it feeds into, yeah.
And would that be the road, would that be connected to,
He believes it's public road, our road.
It is.
You can actually stand at that end, you can see where.
I know.
Yeah.
Another question is Northway. You have people parking on that because some of them own those honeymooners and stuff like that?
That's a good question also, and I did look at it. There's no parking on the north side of Northway. On the south side of Northway, you cannot park until after No Cheese. It's no parking till Broad Street.
They park in front of the apartments.
Yes, just hang on a second.
They park in front of the church.
Let me finish. The apartments has parking in the back that people can use and visit can use it. There's a parking lot. The church has parking for cars to park there. You keep going up the street. The streets that are on the south side are longer for parking off of Northway. If you look at it, they're longer, and there's spaces for cars to park there if they're visiting those houses. Basically, they're longer. And now, if you continue to go up, there's 4 houses that face Northway. There's an alley behind it that you can park on. They park on the Broad Street.
Very wide.
It is wide enough, and it's legal parking. It is a legal parking spot. And they can park there if they have visitors, they can use that alleyway for parking. And so if you do not allow parking there, to me, it's not that big of an issue.
You get criticized for that.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you're telling
If you
people.
live there.
Yeah, if you live there, and you're telling people, you
It's
can't
a-
park in
it-
front of your house, you gotta park in the alley.
It's a
Yeah,
change,
that's
it's a
fine.
change, and, you know, people don't like change, you know that. But in my opinion, you have, like you said, the parking, the driveways are behind Northway. So they have driveways behind Northway and they have parking.
In a perfect world, yes, but you're gonna have people visiting that don't know that there's parking.
That's true.
You got people going to the church, you got people.
That is true.
Yeah, so I mean, something to think about.
Yeah, I did think about that, and that's why I looked at the area. And not only that, there's two bus, no parking in between there too. You can't park where the bus lane, there's two of them on that same side of the street. So literally, you're talking, there's like 3-4 houses, and then there's a one house that has a 2-family, 1 bedrooms, and those 2. Those are the ones that could be affected. But there is parking. That's all I'm saying. There is parking.
Trustee Barbe.
Christopher, I want to get into, do you actually have a group? You're talking about fundraising, and I think it's great. Great ideas, very intriguing. But is there actually a group that's
Yes.
formed
In
that over the next few
why don't you
years will
stand
be?
up? Everybody is part of the group. Greg, Dave, Mark, that's his wife, Jean. These are a committee. We've already had meetings.
Okay.
And we sat down and talked, and so, yes, we do have a group.
That would
And
be
then, he wants to be part of it. What's his name?
Frank.
Frank, so this is a group then that would be intact, or the goal would be intact for the duration of this to continue
Yes.
to raise the funds so that at the end the village won't be putting taxpayer money in, or
Yes.
very little that would be made.
That's a good question, because what if we do get the money? And we got the money and we don't need to do that anymore. My plan is to continue to bring money in for maintenance, for all sidewalks in Greendale, to help maintain it and continue this spring. Basically, just like G8, like any other organization in Greendale, this would just be another organization that would be for walking lanes, biking lanes, and things like that.
Well, what is our commitment at first?
No, I don't. I think we should try to do it right.
The grant, there's no cost up front, and there's not a cost.
The engineer did say that, and maybe you noticed, you don't typically say, oh, forget it, we're not taking a grant, and are looked on very favorably by the state. Is that true?
That's true.
So if we go down this road, we're pretty much in.
You're in, if you don't do it, the state will look down on you the next time you ask for grant money.
Well, I'm going to just add something. What Dave said is probably not a good idea to do by January. Am I correct?
It's aggressive.
Right.
And the inexperience of applying for these grants and the engineer you have. But maybe it is better.
We have the people to do this by January, if the board wants to commit to it. I mean, we have planners, we have engineers. I don't know how much it's going to cost to apply.
Do you think?
I mean, you'd have a good idea how much it would cost to apply in basically a month.
Yeah, $5,000 to $10,000. That's what I used to charge. It was a quick turnaround in the consulting world, but that was 60 hours of hard work and research, and getting resolutions passed, and meeting with committees, and coming up with an accurate cost estimate. That's probably the 2 most important things: is having a plan that you all adopt and agree with, and 2, an accurate cost estimate going into a grant application. Because if you go in with a wrong number, or a number you're not confident with, or a wrong number, I just think that's a mistake.
Right.
It's good going in with a plan.
You said we can't apply next year?
In the DOT world, their cycle comes every 2 or 3 years for this TAP money. For the DNR trail stewardship money, that's an annual grant program, maybe.
Because the other thing we're missing is any real public input. You know, advertising, have an open house, this is what we're planning on doing.
Well,
This is now going to be in your backyard.
Right.
I'd like to add to that because the beautiful thing about it, if you get the grant and then you feel like there's a huge blowback on it, we don't want it.
But then that
There's
would
really
hurt
that
us
again.
if we want a grant again. That's what I heard.
Well, then that could be a problem.
Yeah, it'd be a big problem.
Yeah.
But you may have the same problem with the blowback anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wouldn't be.
Trustee Sal.
What I'd like to do is have R.A. Smith take the new plan and do their thing and tell us what it looks like. It's hard to...
How much it would cost if they can even do it.
Yeah.
You know, part of what I saw was, you know, running behind the high school football field, you're getting into the floodplain there.
I don't think so because it
I just pulled it up on a county GIS website.
Oh, yeah?
You're getting close, I can't tell for sure.
We're getting close, but there's another way too. You get approved from the school. There's plenty of land from the county to the school.
Yeah, but then you gotta take the high school football field fence down and
No,
put it
no,
back
no.
up again.
No. There's a lot of room from the football field to the county land. In fact, the school cuts the grass.
But I'll be honest, the world I run in, work in,
Okay,
is not this easy and not this quick as you describe it.
I understand.
And I've done, how many are we done? But my opinion, I guess, is, I mean, we've done water towers, revamped our whole water system, built many roads, bridges.
I understand.
I never seen something like this just come up in 1 month or 2 months, really.
Yeah, I understand.
And we're go.
Yeah.
And we'll change the community. This will change the community.
Per your comments, I would encourage you to do your due diligence. And it's something you don't rush into. I mean, we're talking about some serious dollars, so I would do it right and do it once.
Right.
I do like the idea. I think it's a great idea. And I appreciate all the time that you spent on this.
It's just what you're up against.
Right.
It's a great concept, yeah.
What sidewalk that people would want to use or have?
It was actually a sidewalk behind Clover. There was one person
Yeah.
that didn't like it. And he just said, the interesting thing is, he said that we're going to have people from Waukesha coming in, and they're going to be playing baseball games back here. And that's what he said.
Who said that?
Well, I wouldn't let that
I
one
can't say
person
who.
out.
Yeah, but I mean, I would prefer a path in the street. I mean, we have enough problems on Broad Street with people, you know.
Well, we have a lot of events on Broad Street.
Yeah.
One thing too is what happens.
Okay, well, that's
what I think we need to talk about that.
that's another way, because then you just come all the way down Grange, and you come right to the sidewalk, that entrance up from Grange, and it comes all the way down behind the school, and it comes all the way to Southway. Now that's where the cost is going to be more money. But yes, it does eliminate Northway, it does eliminate Schoolway, and it just comes right.
It doesn't take them into the village, so I don't like that as much, but.
Yeah.
Well,
But if you're going down, if you're in the back side of it, it is.
Signage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Signage.
I like it.
But then we need to just talk some more about it, I think.
But as far as putting in the comprehensive plan, that's something we can do. It doesn't cost.
Definitely, yeah, and I'd be for that for sure.
We'll do that pretty quickly.
I would move to put it in the comprehensive plan.
Like a bike path plan. Because the comprehensive plan, there's a lot of statutory requirements. It's not quick.
Okay.
So we'll talk about it.
All right.
Well, I'm curious what you're going to do now.
I don't know what we can do.
A lot of
Just curious.
Well, we can direct the staff to look at the comprehensive plan and see if it can.
Well, no, he said it has to be a bike plan.
Comprehensive plan, you've got notice requirements, so many days ahead. You're talking months. You'll never get the comprehensive plan done by the 28th of January.
But that is a problem,
I don't
because if you don't have a comprehensive plan, you're not gonna get a grant.
But I think we could do some kind of bike plan, separate from the comprehensive plan.
But is that part of the comprehensive plan, is a big part of the grant?
If, it's a point getter in the grant application process, so if your plan is part of a regional plan or part of the village's comprehensive plan, it gets you a point or two, and it helps in the grant award point total. And that's how these grants are set up. You earn a certain number of points based on criteria, and a comprehensive plan, or being part of your plan, is one of the elements.
It sounds like we're missing out on some points. We try to do it this January. That's the fundraising comprehensive plan.
You know what, I agree with you.
Yeah, maybe we start this process and we get ready to get it accepted when we apply.
I agree with you. I would agree that maybe the timing isn't good.
Yeah.
And maybe wait for the next one, but really seriously think about it.
Yes.
I love the idea.
I think you would start fundraising.
Yes.
We can work on getting in the comprehensive plan there.
And I would be willing.
First creating a plan and where it would go, getting public input.
And I would be willing to, the money that is made for this goes into an account at the village, and it's a separate account.
Yeah, that's what it should do.
Either it's for this trail or just pathways.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
People would buy into that because people like the pathways here.
Yeah.
You know, if it isn't the trail.
Okay.
So I guess I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to look into the plan, and modify the comprehensive plan, to spend allocate hours on this idea.
Second motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call,
Thanks,
please.
Doc.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
Aye.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Peckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Allet?
Aye.
President Zaborowski?
Aye.
I just want to wait for the vote.
All right, next discussion. BOT 21108, discussion and necessary action regarding a resolution designating the village manager as an authorized signer for Village of Greendale for approved contracts and accepting donations. Manager Michaels?
Kristen.
I don't know where she is.
She's back there somewhere.
Sarah, could you please see if Kristen is back there because she wrote the resolution.
She was taking a nap.
I would.
Sure, I can just, I can read it for you, that's fine.
Go ahead.
So you remember that there's somebody who had left to donate money?
Yes.
And part of this,
Bless you.
I'm not sure what the name of the production place is. Part of it is that they want to have this on file, and I think it's like to be sure that they don't let him sign for something that he's not authorized to sign for, and then that he's not really representing the village or something, that's where they come from. So it's just part of their, they have like the standard thing that in addition to the other, well, he signed all of the paperwork that said, okay.
That makes sense.
It's like if you're, that the board of whatever, whether you're a corporation, whether you're a municipality, that the board says this person is authorized.
That makes sense. Okay.
You can't pocket the money.
I move to approve the resolution designating the village manager as an authorized signer for the village of Greendale for approved contracts and accepting donations.
I second it.
Discussion at all? Roll call, please.
Trustee Barbian?
Aye.
Trustee Sell?
I abstained because I didn't hear anything.
What?
I'm going to abstain because I just wasn't here for it.
Trustee Unger.
Aye.
Trustee Peckmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee McFall.
Aye.
Trustee Olet.
Aye.
President Zabrowski.
Aye. Item H, BOT 21109, discussion regarding ordinance 17.363, regulation of tourist homes. Placed on the agenda at the request of Trustee Feckmeyer and Trustee Barbian. Take it away.
I'll tell you.
I'm going to speak to that. Trustee Barbie and I are bringing this before the board because we see it as a potential problem for Greenville residents and the integrity of our neighborhoods. We've seen more and more Greenville original houses being advertised on Airbnb type of sites on the internet. Right now, there are 10 being offered as tourist rooming houses or tourist homes, or some people call them Airbnbs. With some research, we found out that it's not just Greenville that has concerns regarding this, it's really all over the country. Many communities and cities in Wisconsin and around the country are passing ordinances to restrict the influx of too many of these homes in their neighborhoods. Currently, there's 11 Airbnbs in Greenville, 10 are in the originals. There are 3 streets in the village center that already have 2 Airbnbs on those streets. Each 3-bedroom house can accommodate 6 adults. That potentially is 3 or more vehicles needing parking spaces on your streets. This opportunity could attract out-of-state investors. I know of one already that's an out-of-state investor that's looking to buy a Greenville original for an Airbnb. The statistics and trends say that there could be more of that. Many municipalities are implementing very strict ordinances, kind of similar to what we used to have. Many are restricting daily rentals and require that the property be owner-occupied, things such as that, things that we used to have implemented. We're proposing much less restrictions than that, than these other communities. We propose that we change the ordinance that we currently have to restrict the number of Airbnbs per street in Greenville. The ordinance does say that the village administrator has a right to look at that before giving a licensing, before approving, but that's not being done. I think it needs to be stronger wording than that. We should prevent short-term rentals from massing in a particular block in our neighborhoods, because I think that can happen. There's 3 streets, I already have 2. I'm also proposing that there's a fine or consequences for owners that are running unlicensed or non-registered Airbnbs. We don't have anything in the books about that, and there are some doing that, and if there's consequences, I think there'd be less of that. And the reason being is they could have a range of issues such as inadequate insurance coverage, potential safety and health problems because they've not been inspected. There are already many rental properties in the village center, as people that live in the village center know. There's several rentals right on my little bitty street, and that's okay. That changes the dynamics of the neighborhood though as well. Rentals are a for-profit business. The profit margin for Airbnb stands to be much greater than rentals. That's why it's so attractive for investors. For instance, a single-family 3-bedroom home in Greenville possibly rents for approximately $1,200 a month. Some of the same single-family Airbnb renting at, let's say, $200 a month, because they're somewhere in that range. Some of those they only need 6 nights to make up the $1,200 that they would have got in a whole month. So there's a huge profit margin in that. I think we have a responsibility to protect residents and neighborhoods. Any restrictions should be weighed against the rights of property owners. So we're not trying to, we don't hate Airbnbs, we're not saying that we shouldn't have them in Greenville. We should just limit it in the case that things start getting carried away.
Let me go first to clear up. We cannot limit the number of Airbnbs. Every home in Greendale could turn into an Airbnb under state law. Every home, if they satisfy the rules and blah, blah, blah. The only thing we can do is restrict how many days it can operate under state law. That's it.
Okay, that's why it used to be written that way, and that's why all the communities are going back to that.
It
Well,
makes
that
it
would be an
hard,
option.
it
I
makes
don't
it
like that
hard for
option.
an Airbnb homeowner to make the business profitable. Because under the old law, they could only do it for 180 consecutive days, and rental period had to be more than 6 days.
That's exactly what the other communities are going to.
Because it's that's legal.
What other communities are doing that?
Appleton, Neenah, Madison, Green Bay, San Francisco, New York. A lot of
San Francisco and New York?
Those are cities.
Well, other cities, but that doesn't.
They're limiting and restricting Airbnbs. I don't know if it's because it sometimes can be harmful to hotels, especially with COVID and stuff. But
Ken, did you have anything at all?
No, as I said, we can't limit the number of Airbnbs. We allow one. Every single home in the village could be one. We do have a fine. There's a fine of $750 a day that they could be assessed for not having a license. The hard part about these is doing the investigation. You don't get an address for an Airbnb from the people of where it's at until you rent it. I did, by some of the postings that we had, I was able to go and find out where they were because they got their street address on it, and the street addresses don't repeat that much.
yeah.
Every one that I've contacted that were turned in before, they've all applied. So any Airbnb that's licensed now, doesn't matter if you change ordinance or not, they're still licensed as they were. You can't change it. I pretty much think we saturated the market. I mean, this is the fourth kick at the can. And we started out real strict. This board elected to not be strict. And we warned them of that at the time. Jody, he's got two probably the best Airbnbs that I've seen. I've gone to Airbnbs. He keeps up his houses. He has one, his one is grandfathered in. He can't be charged even a license fee because it was done before we started him. His second one would remain as it is. He could still be open. He could rent it out every single night, 12 months out of the year. We can't change that. I had looked up today, there was in Walworth County, they created an ordinance, and it went to court, to the state Supreme Court, and they lost because the Airbnb was legally running before they created their ordinance or changed their ordinance.
So they'd be grandfathered in.
So they'd be all grandfathered in. So everyone,
could limit it with new.
I got applications and payment for 3 of them today. So I think it's all but 2 of them that I know of. And one I have an address, so they'll be getting a letter. The other one I have to find out the address and see. So they would be getting a letter that they're not complying with the village ordinance. So anyone who's been contacted, immediately they send the applications in. So
And we don't find them even though they've been running without following the
well,
ordinance.
number one, you have to prove that they were doing. Just because they're advertised on an Airbnb doesn't mean. So we would have to investigate. We would have to go. We would have to get pictures of cars in there with out-of-state licenses. Stop at the homes and ask them, are you renting this house as an Airbnb? We can't just say, just because you're on the site. I mean, there's a lot of them are on the sites that they never rent them at all.
Well, the sites show when they're booked and the sites have
Well,
comments.
but that, we have to
And I
catch
thought
it.
according to our ordinance-
It's like a ticket. I mean, you have to be ticketed, you have to be caught speeding in order to get a speeding ticket. You can't just say, well, I seen you going down the road, it looked like you were going 50 miles over the speed limit, and I'm gonna give you a ticket. No, you can't do that.
Technically, there's no fine.
Well, if they refuse and then we go there and we find out that they are renting them, then we could, in our application, we can charge them $750. Otherwise, we go through our village ordinance and we can charge them with the daily fee that we charge. Most of them just don't know about it and they comply right away.
So is our ordinance say that they have to have a guest book list where they have to have people's names and address in it?
Yes. And that's state law, and that's one thing that Peter does. Peter, through our contract, he is the one who licenses Airbnbs. Our first inspection that I go out and I do a safety inspection the first time, and then he licenses them. And then every year they have to renew that license through the state. So.
Trustee McFall.
Ken, how much is it to license a Airbnb?
The first year, I get a $100 inspection fee. Peter gets a $100 inspection fee, and then it's $165 a year with the state of Wisconsin. It's actually a DAPA license. It's not even their license. It's not our license. It's a state license.
I know where you're going with that.
Okay, thank you. Answer my question.
Trustee Barbian.
One of the concerns I had here, I think you addressed it, I didn't realize that you got in contact. We had heard many residents that come forward and say a lot of them aren't like, I'm concerned that we want an inspection, find out if they have a fire extinguisher on site, find out any other, I mean, I really want everybody that's doing Airbnb to have you take a look at it. And we had heard that there were several that weren't being inspected, but now you're saying that you pretty much feel that they are being inspected.
There has been no citizen that came up to me and asked about any Airbnb. So there's no one ever came to our office and complained.
Trustee Younger.
So I'm just piggybacking on what you just said. So Colleen gave us a list of 10 or 11 Airbnbs. Are all 10 licensed?
Everyone on her list except for 2 are now licensed or in the process of a license, or 3 of them. There's actually 11 of them. So there's 3 of them that aren't. I have their addresses now. We find out I do issue letters right away to them. Again, we have to catch someone there. It's hard to prove. And just because they're listed on those sites doesn't mean they actually have any openings or that they're actually leasing. I know one of the ones from the Emmons, she's actually rents hers out for 29 or more days, so there is no licensing requirement under the state for 29 or more days. She's still going to get her license. They paid for them today, so they're in the process of it. I mean, it was our concern, and it was the lawyer's concern back when we first did this. And because Jody was so successful, he wanted to create another one. He's fixed his up. I mean, he's done a very good job on his. The board lowered it down to, we can have them anytime we want, and you can rent them for 1 day if you want. That just encourages other ones to come along. So, I mean, the board has done this to themselves, basically, is what I'm saying.
Well, the bonus is that they are inspected, they are kept up because people don't want to stay in the dump.
They have to meet the license.
That's a bonus. It brings people into the village, but like Jody's, he's got 2. There's a house in between. The person in between is probably the only person in the village that's very unhappy about that because she has no neighbors.
Never said anything to us.
She's got people coming and going on either side of her. So, I mean, for me, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't have anybody on the other side of my house. I already have renters on this side, that's a problem. So, and not that they're a problem, it's just that you don't have any neighbors, you don't have any kids in the neighborhood, you know, it changes the dynamics of the neighborhood if you don't limit it somehow. So.
And there's a lot of requirements for these Airbnbs. Every time there's a change of a tenant in there, if you change it every single night, you have to clean that complete house, you have to wash every bit of bed. It's just like a hotel. They're run like a hotel.
Nobody's checking on that, though.
If there's any,
you would hope, but nobody's checking on that.
If there's any complaints, well, then that's what it's done by complaint. And they would go to Peter, and that's one of the things that he does is that he would do complaints, and then they would not get a license the next year if they have too many.
Well, plus people post that online, and then, you know, like it's your business, so nobody wants to do that. So I guess the only way to limit it down the road is there a point where we say there really is getting to be too many?
We can't.
Well, yes, you can change your ordinances back to the restrictive. Like
back to 180 days.
Then the amount that are established are their grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
but no more new ones.
So maybe we just all need to think about what point that is. I think we're close, personally.
I guess, can I ask your opinion on this?
Hold
Since
on.
he isn't here.
Hold on. You have a conflict of interest?
Yes.
Yes.
Don't say a word. Just my suggestion.
Yeah, Jason, trying to get me in trouble.
I knew that.
Jason, if you have any questions.
You couldn't forward to.
I can't ask
You can't do that?
No, I can't. I just wanted his opinion on them.
Oh.
But, okay. So, what would you like to do at this point, I guess, with this?
I guess just revisit it at some point, not in the near future, but for all of us to think about.
So we'll just table it for now?
And I can keep watching online and keep track of new ones, posting and stuff, because several on my list obviously weren't licensed. Like, more than half of them.
Actually, this is just a discussion. We don't even have to do anything. All right. We're not gonna, we'll just do nothing. We're not
Anyway, wasn't there?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
We discussed it.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, moving on. Village manager report? Nothing? Okay. Only thing I have is I would like to thank the village, staff, police department, fire department, health department, library, literally everybody in the village, including Kristen, for an amazing tree lighting and Dickens. It was absolutely amazing both nights. So thank you to everybody that helped that happen. I think, what?
You said DPW, didn't you?
I don't know, DPW.
DPW, yeah.
I said everybody. So both nights were amazing. The Dickens, I felt like it was the busiest Dickens I've ever seen. And I love the food truck rally. That was so cool.
Awesome.
It was so cool. So everything about both those nights were absolutely amazing, so thank you. And that's all I have. Next we'll move on to citizens' comments. Persons wishing to address the board are asked to state their name and address for the record. Limit their comments to only one time. Limit their comments to 3 minutes or 5 minutes if representing a group of persons. Citizens' comments shall be limited to a period not to exceed 15 minutes. Please note the village board can only discuss matters listed on the agenda. It's open.
Anybody?
Joe Superintendent of West Shore Drive, Berlin, representing 25 Bathurst Street. I'd like to thank the police chief for the tree lighting. I brought up some parking issues to his attention. They got them resolved. I was ticketed quickly. Thank you, chief. I also want to thank DPW. They did a great job with the plow trucks and everything. There might be an opportunity there for maybe having, Dickens, see the big truck day. It's a good chance to, see what a snowplow looks like up close and personal. On the other note, further notes, one is that listening to the issues with the Airbnbs, I guess about 8-9 years ago, Todd and Ron might remember it, I was kind of the one that brought the can of worms to board attention at the time. There's a number of the board members are saying, well, gee, we could have B&Bs now. And I said, no, you can't. They said, yes, we can. And I said, look at your ordinances. And one of the prohibited uses of a house in Greendale was for a B&B. Now, that was for a true B&B, not an Airbnb. Maybe you need to look for a way to encourage maybe more real B&Bs in the village, and not the easy route of the Airbnbs. I used to work for the State Lodging Association, and I know when Airbnbs came along, they weren't overly happy because they're not true lodging facilities, and that there's basically no innkeeper, for lack of a better term. So you may want to look, if you want to restrict stuff, there might be a way to do it and actually have real innkeepers on premises. And also prevent your out-of-state investors, so to speak. Secondly, regarding the bike paths, using the paths or expanding paths or adding paths isn't unprecedented. Back in 1951-52, when the government sold the originals to the residents, my grandma purchased the house that she lived in, the full house, And part of the way she was able to do that was at the time there was not a path running Longdale Creek from Grange to Northwood. So in order to get the path in there, the county bought a sliver of land from my grandma for $1,100. She used that money to put a down payment on the house. So not all the paths that were here originally. You may want to look at, there's a precedent for that. As far as people not being able to park on the street, one of those trustees that brought that up, keep in mind I'm a taxpayer, but I can't use a dog.
Got a new background.
Yes, I'm Mark Zaluski, mediator with 3 Green Hill Lane, and I really just want to take a moment to congratulate the board on pushing this forward, the bike path idea forward for the community of Greendale. I think it's a real important step because I think it's going to put Greendale on the map in terms of being a city that's connected and open, and it's going to really set us apart from other communities in the area to be able to have something like this. We can get into the weeds on the details, which we did a little bit tonight, but I think the concept is there, and I think it's really important to push it forward and really set Greendale apart. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Anybody else?
Jen Miller, representing the Greendale Historical Society. I too wanted to thank the board for moving along with this fence zoning changes to accommodate, to give us an opportunity to complete the restoration of the house on Apple Court. So we thank you for that. Look forward to doing it. Probably won't happen until next spring, but I'm sure that'll be an opportunity for us to share the house. One of the other things I wanted to mention to the board and the group here tonight, I know this magazine comes out, quarterly, and I hope some of you have seen this. Each board get a chance to look at this. When we started talking about these Airbnbs, we're using that as a generic term. That's the company that markets it. We market through them. We've been marketing Apple Court since June 19, and been very successful with it. The purpose for us to do this is to maintain the house for long-term sustainability, so that the house can be shared with the community. And we share this house on a regular basis. We get calls virtually every week for someone that wants to take a tour of the house. And we want to make that house available for them. But just like any homeowner, we have bills to pay. And so even though we're a nonprofit, and maybe some people don't quite understand what the definition of a nonprofit is, we don't pay taxes, we don't collect taxes. That's by a 501c3. Those are the federal statutes. It doesn't mean that we can't raise money. So in terms of raising money, it's been alluded to that our mortgage is paid off. And I think this is just an example of how the community of Greendale supports what the Greendale Historical Society is doing with the house on Apple Court. On October 23rd, in one day, we raised $65,000 to pay off our loan. To me, that shows community support. And that's not the total amount of money that we raised. We budgeted, and we came to the board, the village board, a few years ago with our plan. We had a budget of $197,000. We've raised that much money. We came in under budget and on time with the restoration of the house. That money came from people in the village of Greendale. We didn't get a federal grant. We didn't get a state grant. These were people in Greendale that gave us from $1 to individual donors who gave $10,000 and more. To me, that shows support for what we're doing. I think we also have the support of people in our neighborhood. Because we rescued a house. This house was in dire straits, poor condition. And the Greendale Historical Society took it upon ourselves, with the help of physical volunteers and donor volunteers, to make this house into something that's desirable. Our goal is to share that house with as many people as possible. So when people register on Airbnb or VRBO and they tell us what a great place this is to visit, what a nice house this is to stay in, we think that's a good sign of success. So I know you've got a copy of this, but I want to read just one to you here as I wrap up here. I see the clock is still ticking. This is from a family, the very first family that rented the house. They submit these comments, not to us personally, so we don't solicit them. They post them to Airbnb. This is what the Clark family from Atlanta, Georgia said. As soon as we walked through the door, we could tell that a great deal of love, energy, and time had been poured into its restoration. It's not just a place to spend the night, it's like a mini museum. We had no idea when we booked it how fabulous the location would be. Greendale has all these connecting walking paths and green spaces that are accessible from the lane this house is on. So it's a very enjoyable walk to playgrounds, restaurants, bakery, coffee shop, and more. We really hope to get to stay here again. So when we look at all of these Airbnbs, not just ours, what they're doing is they're bringing people to Greendale. And they're coming away with this. That's just one of the dozens of comments we've received. And they all mention walking through Greendale, walking down to the stores, going to the bakery, going to the coffee shop, going to one of our many restaurants, and wanting to come back. So I think we need to support the efforts that are being made, and we thank you for the support you've already shown.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you. Anybody else? First, last citizens' comments at all? If not, I see none. I will close it and make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Farbian?
No.
Trustee Sell?
Yes.
Trustee Unger?
Aye.
Trustee Beckmeyer?
Aye.
Trustee McFall?
Aye.
Trustee Zipper?